What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of Bouldering Breakdown, where today we're heading over to the Beware and Run boulder in the upper romper room at the Niagara Glen. So to give you guys some context for why I'm making this video, I'm going to tell you about the day that I sent infected mushroom for the first time, and I'm sure it's going to be a familiar story for some other people out there as well. So I sent it back in 2015 for the first time. I had seen some videos and I thought it looked like a sweet climb, so I hit it up on the way out of the Glen one day, and I was able to pull through the first few moves pretty easy, and then I had to give a good few burns to hit the triangle bucket, but once I snatched that, I was able to pull through and I got the send. I left that day feeling pretty good. It was probably the fastest I'd ever climbed a V9, and I was feeling pretty strong. Of course, though, when I went home and I logged my sends, I was able to kind of see what other people said about the climb. And the grade was a little controversial. Some people were rating it a V7 and then all the way to a V9, which is in the original guidebook. It was listed as a V9. So I think people were putting the grades on the videos that I saw because of the guidebook, but little did we know, people are doing the left variation to infected mushroom, which now is a consensus V7 and has been put out in the new guidebook from last year as such. Okay, so now I know what the left variation of infected mushroom is, and there's a lot of videos out there, and it's a great climb. A lot of people like it. But a couple of years later, of course, I want to know, what's the original climb? I want to do the V9 variation. There's no videos out there, and I have the new guidebook, and I saw like where it's supposed to go. So I went and checked out the boulder a few times and looked at the holds and still didn't really understand like how the moves were supposed to be. So eventually I ended up trying it and just pulled on, and I found some holds in the rock up and to the left instead of up and to the right where the line in the guidebook shows, and I started trying to work a sequence through there. Eventually, I was able to pull through and do what I'm now calling another variation of infected mushroom, and that's infected mushroom middle. I'm not sure if this is a first ascent, probably not, but it is significantly different from the left variation and the original variation, and I'm guessing maybe it's around a V8. It's harder than the left variation, but probably easier than the original variation. Alright, so now I've done infected mushroom left and infected mushroom middle. I knew that this variation probably wasn't the original infected mushroom because it didn't follow the line in the guidebook. So I figured, man, I got to get to the bottom of this. I saw that Keith McKay did the first ascent of infected mushroom. So I messaged him on Facebook and showed him the video of the variation that I did and asked if that was it, and he said no, and he kind of helped me with a little bit of beta of what the original infected mushroom was supposed to be. And finally I was like, okay, well, this is the way it's got to go. It's got to go up and to the right. I've heard a little bit of beta. I had a bit more confidence in what was supposed to happen on the climb, and I went back to do it. It took me a few sessions to make out the little subtleties and come up with my own beta. And also I needed a day where I had enough pads to feel safe because it gets pretty sketchy up towards the top there. So finally one day in the fall, I went to the Glen with my buddy John and fired it off first go. It was a very satisfying climb, and definitely psyched to put the infected mushroom chapter behind me. Let's get into some beta. Alright guys, so let's get into the first send. That's infected mushroom left. You start the same on all three variations. You're sitting on the ground, you got both hands on a good hold, and then you have your right heel and a nice hidden ledge kind of out to the right. And then you have your left foot just scumming on the rock beneath you. Then from here you look up, you think, wow, that first move is really far away. But once you pull up and you really crank in with the heel, it's actually not too bad. I've also seen some people use a right toe instead of a heel, so whatever works for you and your height. Once you grab the good hold and the start of eye candy, you hand foot match with your left toe where your left hand is, and start to get into the series of small edges. So honestly, there's a bunch of different ways to kind of get through here. The way I did it is I go left hand as an intermediate, then high left hand, come under with my right hand, and then left hand on the furthest left edge that I can match in with my right hand as well. Basically, you can do whatever sequence works for you through there. You just want to end up with your hands matched on that furthest left edge. Then from here, you want to get your left foot on a nice little spike out left that you can pull in with, and then do the big move all the way around kind of the sloping arete to a little like micro crimp edge. Once you stick that move, that's kind of the first crux. You head into probably the hardest part of the climb, which is getting to the triangle bucket straight above you. So back in 2015, I kind of dynoed to the jug and then, like cut my feet as I hit it. Now, when I did the other variations this year or in 2018, I didn't actually have to cut. So, whatever you're able to do at the time. There's also another way to get there that I've seen some other people do that are usually a bit shorter. They actually use an intermediate micro crimp with the right hand, so they come into that before kind of jumping to the jug. And it's actually the crimp used in the climb called Kryptonite, so it's highlighted there. Then once you hit the bucket, it's essentially over for the left variation. You just get your left hand to the left side pull, bring your left foot over, make a big bump with your left hand into kind of a Gaston thing. Cross over with your right hand and just cruise up the crack system on some jugs. And that's it for the first variation. Alright, so let's get into infected mushroom middle. I'm going to start at the triangle bucket since the beginning's the same on all the variations. So from here, you want to get your right foot onto one of the earlier crimps, and then bring your left hand into the seam so you can bring your left foot up and high to the left. Then from here is where you get into quite a big reach. So I stretch way up and left to kind of a shallow sloping pocket with the left hand, and then from here I kind of scoop my right foot up a little bit, and then once you feel ready, you pop to the next pocket, which is sharp and pretty good. It's pretty much over at that point. As you can see, this variation of the climb is kind of wingspan dependent, so I'm not really sure kind of on what the grade would be. It probably depends on your height and your wingspan. I'm going to go with around a V8. So from there, you get your right foot into the triangle bucket and kind of make your way to the top. Right hand up to a kind of a decent ledge in the middle of the face. Move your feet over, and then actually bump your right hand further to the left to kind of a decent jug on the upper edge of the rock. Then from there, you just use whatever holds. There's a bunch of good holds up there, and traverse up and right to top out kind of in the same area as the original infected mushroom. Alright, and finally the infected mushroom original variation. Let's break down the beta. So starting again at the triangle jug, we kind of get into the first crux of the problem, at least it was for me. You want to go up and right from there, so the only way to really do that is to match in this triangle jug, which really isn't that wide and took me a while to figure out how to do it. So the beta that I settled on is kind of interesting. As you can see, I kind of wiggle my fingers around and I turn it from a 4-finger jug to actually I'm just grabbing it with 2 fingers, and that's to make room for my left hand. I bring my right foot up, come in with my left hand, and then again do a little bit of fiddling around till I finally pop my right hand out and kind of just slap on the arete to get a little bit of friction. And from there, bust up to kind of a Gaston sloper hold with a little bit of edge on it. Once you get into there, you pray that your right hand doesn't blow off, because that's going to be kind of a nasty fall down into your right. So the For the longest time, I was actually trying to hand-foot match in this position, bringing my left foot all the way up to where my left hand is in the bucket. But that turned out to actually be pretty hard, and thankfully I found another way around it. So I brought my left thumb into the seam near my right hand. As you can see, probably the first time I've kind of done a move like this, and it's pretty cool. Then I turn my hand around and kind of grab up under the seam so I could bring my left foot up into the jug. And then from there, you kind of make the first sketchy move where you really want to find your balance and then reach up with your left hand to kind of an okay side pull. Then from there, you're heading into probably the most sketchy move of the climb. Find your balance, go up and right with your right hand to another good side pull. If you're able to snatch this side pull, then you're pretty much in the clear. You bring your right foot over to one of the edges from chain reaction, and then bust up with your right hand to a good edge near the top. Bring your left foot up and top this thing out on jugs.
Oh! Woo! Holy shit.